Welcome to Holistically Speaking. I'm Hilary Russo, certified holistic health coach and health and wellness journalist. This is an empowering place to explore self-awareness, self-love, and transformation through health, healing, and humor. By sharing life-changing experiences, knowledge, and guests with varied expertise, we'll explore who we are, how we got that way, and what it takes to be a happy and healthy grown-up. Mind, body, and spirit. I'm glad you're here. When it comes to health and the healing arts, there are millions of people offering their services and approaches in the world. It can be overwhelming, right? Not only for those seeking guidance, but for those providing. And as a coach, a healer, a trainer, understanding the business of mindfulness also comes with a responsibility, not only to others, but to ourselves. And even if you're just trying to find the right practice that works well for you, being open to possibilities means being authentic to who you are and how you want to show up in the world. That's the true business of being Zen. And that's also where David Gandelman steps in. He is a different kind of spiritual teacher. Having a conversation with David will never be absent of humor. And as you're soon to find out, he'll also keep you laughing. And if you know me, you know that's right up my alley, holistically speaking. But David's spiritual journey began long before his creation of meditation school. Many mountains were climbed, an array of ashrams were visited, and even a few improv classes were taken along the way to keep his wit in check and his brain engaged. Get ready to laugh, learn, and love this conversation with David Gandelman. It will leave you saying, Nama yay. David, it's such a pleasure to have you here on Holistically Speaking. We've had some really nice conversations in the past, and I just feel like it's such a great opportunity to have you here to share more about who you are. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, Hilary. It's a pleasure. And we had a great pre-show conversation a few weeks ago.
So you have this amazing meditation school, and you've been doing this for quite some time, but you have a journey that got you there. And I would really enjoy you sharing that with our listeners.
Sure. So I'll just start. I was born at a very young age on the East Coast. When I was 16, I was kind of a regular kid playing ice hockey, chasing girls, doing average in school. And then my brother came home from college one weekend, and he was definitely doing some alternative mind-altering substances, let's say. And he said, "Hey, man, you never read any books." And he dragged me to the bookstore, and he was like, "You have to buy something." And I just saw this pile of books, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It was the year 2000. It's actually 20 years ago this month I started meditating. So I picked up one of those books. I took it home, maybe like 3-4 pages in. It was like a light bulb just went off inside of me. Mm-hmm. Really simple concept that came across that now is very common understanding among people who meditate or are interested in meditating. Just all he said was, we're constantly being pulled into the future and back into the past, and we rarely are in this moment. And as simple as that was, I had this recollection of, hey, when I was a kid, I used to walk in the forest and be with the trees and with nature, and I was so present and I didn't have any thoughts. And now my mind is always racing and I'm never here. So I had this realization, and it was like something in me just woke up. And I started meditating a lot, hours and hours on end, reading hundreds of books, everything I can get my hands on. I never read any books. And then all of a sudden I was like this, just gobbling up everything I could find on spirituality and philosophy and personal growth. And at that time, there was no podcast. There were no YouTube videos to watch. I didn't meet another meditator for years. And I would go, it was kind of like the beginnings of the internet. And so I would go on my AOL, beep, get online. Right. And I would get online and maybe it was past AOL. I'm not sure, but I would get online. I would look at ashrams in India and just like salivate, like, I want to go to the Himalayas. And my parents are like, what is wrong with this kid?
Why won't he just play hockey and be a normal teenager?
Exactly, which I still was. It was a little bit of a secret interior thing I had going on. So I kind of kept both worlds going. But what did happen to me was my grades got better. I was able to focus more. I got a great girlfriend, which I credited a lot to meditating because it made me calm and my energy kind of lighter. And I started asking the deeper questions about life and carrying on deep conversations with adults, which kind of endeared me to some of my teachers in high school and then in college. I would say I graduated with pretty good grades with a philosophy degree. And I think it's probably because of the way I became friendly with my professors more than my intellect. So I started just opening up my energy and talking with people. And I've always been both an extrovert and an introvert. And so when I got to college, I was like, oh my God, your job is to talk about the deep things in life, and I'm your student. Let's do this all day long.
That's definitely not your normal college experience, but really what's normal? What's normal to being a high school kid? What's normal to being a college kid, a child? Why aren't we doing more meditation? I mean, that's what's so fabulous is that we are seeing schools now incorporating and integrating meditation into the classroom from kindergarten.
It's crazy. I've done it. I've gone into schools and universities. I taught meditation at university for like 4 years. Every semester I would go. And so it's definitely becoming a thing. It was not a thing when I was a teenager. It was like, you dork, he's meditating.
Or people thought it was woo-woo, you know? People thought, oh, this is just for people of a certain culture or it's like now we're starting to talk about mental health more, which we should. I mean, meditation is a huge part of mental health and your emotional well-being. And that is the norm. Yeah. That is the norm.
And unfortunately, during coronavirus, the anxiety in the world is like through the roof. People are, they're alone because they're socially distancing, they're isolated and they're alone and they're feeling super anxious. And so I've never been busier in my life. People are just like begging for help with anxiety.
Yeah, definitely. I'm in the same boat there. I mean, being in a similar practice, but a different approach, people are almost crying out for help because they're bottling up these feelings that they don't know how to deal with. And what's so beautiful is that there are so many different ways and so many different approaches out there that are available. And quite frankly, I think the last 7.5 months at the point of us talking today has opened people's eyes to the virtual and digital age, the real world that exists out there, and the telehealth and telemedicine and the availability we have to use the internet, this fabulous tool to reach people on a much larger level.
Absolutely. I feel blessed that I feel really lucky because my career didn't exist when I was in high school or college. And then when I lived in the Himalayas and I was up there going, well, I love doing this meditation, spiritual stuff, but what the hell am I going to do to make money for the rest of my life?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people battle that too. I mean, when we're in the holistic health field, there's this, I think there's got to be a really beautiful union between the Western medicine and the complementary alternative medicine, integrative health, and how we can really dance and be balanced together. You know, I would never poo-poo medicine, but we have such an opportunity to balance the two. You know, if somebody comes to me, as an example, and says they need help with their emotional well-being and their mental health, I want to know if they're seeing somebody else so that we can work together. You know, there's a lot of beautiful things that can exist when you're doing meditation with David, doing havening with Hilary, and then you have your primary care provider, just somebody that helps you in that way too.
Your week is full.
Really work. Yes, we will fill your calendar. So here you are, this young man that's really embarking on a journey mentally and tapping in and being awoke, You woke up in a lot of ways, and goodness, Eckhart is a wonderful way to introduce us to that, right?
Yeah.
I love his books and his speaking. He's kind of funny when you listen to him, isn't he? It's like there's a different approach to him, really.
He's hilarious.
He is hilarious if you've ever seen him speak, not just his readings, which are beautiful, but when that came about and you questioned yourself and you asked yourself, how in the world, as I'm standing on the top of the mountains, how in the world am I going to make a living doing this? I mean, what was the shift in David's mind?
It was definitely a gradual one, not a sudden one. I didn't have a shift in India at that time. I just didn't know. And it's kind of a pretty crazy story, but I was sitting on the banks of the Ganges River at a restaurant in this place called Rishikesh. It's kind of the yoga Disneyland of India. It's got hundreds. If you want to go to India and do yoga, this is a good place to start. Hundreds and hundreds of ashrams there. Lots of Westerners, lots of great food. Anyway, I was sitting at one of these spots, and my friend's girlfriend was a intuitive healer, reader type of person. I had never heard of that. And he said, "Hey, you want her to give you a session right here on the pillows here sitting by the river in this restaurant?" And I said, "Yeah." And she closed her eyes and she did her witchery magic on me. And whatever she said just really resonated. It hit home pretty hard. And I was like, wow, that was amazing. All my Western philosophy understanding and all the Eastern books that I've read, I never experienced that. And I said, "Where'd you learn how to do that?" And she said, "Oh, there's a little school in Hawaii." So I bought a ticket and I moved to Hawaii. I spent 7 years in Hawaii training, studying the mystical, healing, intuitive arts, eventually becoming the director of the school and teaching. And that school was a nonprofit. And so there was never any money. And at a certain point, I'm fast forwarding a lot, but at a certain point, I got to an age in my later 20s where I was like, it'd be great to have a little bit of money and be able to pay the bills and not always just be working out of pure love. And so I started reading books like Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Work Week and listening to podcasts like Gary Vaynerchuk and just starting to shop around for information of how can I take my passion, what I love doing and sharing, and actually make a living out of it. And I realized to do that, I would have to start my own work because the school was a nonprofit. It was set in its ways. And so I took off and did that. And I've been doing that ever since. And I have 3 podcasts now, and I teach on a bunch of different apps, and I have my own online meditation school and all, so many things going on at once. I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur in that way. I get very excited about an idea. Well, I'm finishing a book right now, and I love creating. And I know how some people love working on cars and like fixing cars, like, oh, that part's off. Or building furniture. Mine is like, I like building businesses and like taking a creative idea and going, how can I build something around this and share it with the world and tinker with it. So I like that. I used to do some entrepreneurship coaching for people in wellness and healing. Maybe I'll do it again at some point. I enjoy that too. Because a lot of people, as you know, in the healing arts, they suck at business. They're just like, I just want to do my healing art. And I'm like, well, that's great, but you need food in the belly and you might need to find an audience or your clients. And so there's a process and the structure to that. So never thought I would have to learn business to do what I do, but I did.
How did you learn that? That's a great topic right there. You bring that up, and that's a fabulous point to make, because it's the people in the creative arts, people in the healing arts. We're more creative type. Sometimes we need a little help, and we're seeing all of these things out there like business coaches and whatnot all have value. But how does one with that creative mind that might not be so focused on the business aspect, and they come from a place of, I just want to create, I just want to help people heal, I just want to serve. How do you find that balance?
So first, you have to honor the practicality of the world that we live in. If I was to take you and drop you off on another planet that had different rules, a different economy, a different system of money, you'd have to adapt. you could still do your healing work. Probably most planets you would go to, beings need to be healed and need to find out who they are and why they're here. I think probably every being in the universe is looking up at the stars going, why do we exist? And so that's probably universal. But we do have to work inside of a system for better or for worse. And so you just have to honor that practical side of it. And then, for me, I did gobble up a bunch of books and podcasts. And then what took me to the next level was I eventually hired a business coach who kind of showed me how little I really understood. And that, I would say, kind of broke me like out of this old limiting idea of what was possible, and opened up a whole new level. And I love sharing that. I have maybe like 10 or so people that work for me. And one of the great joys of life for me is being able to pay people and knowing that they can then feed their families or whatever it is they do with it. I just love that. It just really fills me. So, there's this shame around business and money a lot of times for healers and people in wellness, but that doesn't have to be the case. It's not the money that's the issue. It's how you feel about yourself and how you use it.
I love that. And I'm sitting here listening to you, and I was just thinking that we as a society, we look at money we equate it to greed. Yeah. Or success. That's it. Greed and success. But the way you share that, and I was thinking the same thing, that we have this feeling of, oh, money's dirty. And if I'm making a lot of it, I'm more about me, and it's me, 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 me. But the fact is, the more we do have, the more we're able to give, and the more we're able to employ people that might need work, and you're employing them in mindful work and work with integrity. I think that's beautiful.
And I hope it's the future. I hope it's the future of the economy. Yeah.
What do you think about that? The future of the economy. Great topic right there. I mean, we're in the middle of this pandemic, and people are so many emotions, so much stuff flying around, and it comes back to our economy here, at least in the United States. And how do you feel about that?
Did you ever read that book, The Celestine Prophecy? It's an old one.
Yes.
Pretty goody. Yeah.
I have it on my bookshelf.
So good. It's been
so good.
Over a decade since I read it, but I believe at the end he talks about the future being people sitting under 500-year-old trees meditating, and the economy being based more on healing. And I could be totally wrong. Maybe I took that from somewhere else. I think that's in that book. But I do see the future, part of the future, as that the economy of helping each other grow and heal. And obviously it's already happening. Like meditation is a multi-billion-dollar business these days, and so is self-help and the healing arts. Obviously with that you get a lot of froth and a lot of kind of shallow stuff that maybe isn't so good for people, but then again everybody finds what they need. So I do see I think the future is very pluralistic in the sense you'll have the light, the dark, the good, bad, ugly, everything. So I'm not one of those people that says the future is going to look like this for everybody. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do see a piece of it being more of what we're doing, more of people using money instead of getting material goods, exchanging for healing and growth. I think that's definitely going to be a part of the future, and I'm excited to see that happen more. And if I could help in any way, I want to. And I work with a couple of meditation apps that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And so, they're already doing it in a certain sense. So it's pretty amazing to see. And then just today I took a run up. I live right at the base of the mountains. I took a run up the mountains. I came down. I ran into a neighbor of mine my parents are from Belarus. And so is a neighbor of mine. And he's got this kind of Russian accent like my dad, but less so. He's like, "Hey, David, guess what? I just donated to the cause in Belarus to stop the dictator. You should as well." And I was like, "All right. Yeah, I will donate. I think that's a great cause. Let's free the people of Belarus." And it feels good to be able to donate and to do that. So yeah, it's great to be able to make money doing what I love and to share and grow. And so definitely had to work through some shame around that. And that's not the only topic I've had to work through shame around. I think in the spiritual world, there's like, you're only supposed to do certain things and behave a certain way. And I remember being super heartbroken and feeling shame, like, oh, I teach spirituality or I do this kind of healing work. I should never feel that way about relationships. It doesn't matter. Everything is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
That's silly me. Everything's an illusion. Why would I care about life? And I realized, hey, this whole being a human being thing is a little bit more complicated than what I thought. And so you shouldn't feel shame around deepening and developing into every single part of who you are, which is what the book I'm writing is about. Because I always go, hey, what is challenging me? Let me focus on that. Can I teach that? Can I learn more about it? Why is it challenging me so much, rather than feeling shame around it and trying to walk the other direction on the street?
When we spoke the last time, you were talking about the importance of us all needing healing, the need for healing from trauma. And if you can elaborate more on that, do you feel that a lot of people are dealing with trauma in their lives?
Geez, I think just being born is pretty damn traumatic.
That was a pretty traumatic experience. I don't remember it, but yeah. Or do I?
That exit, it was smaller than your body. You know, how many doors do you walk through that are smaller than you?
I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, I do think coming down to earth is a very traumatic moment. I really do. And then when people will say, you know, how do I shift my energy? How do I shift my life? If you're walking around with kind of dark clouds over you or pockets of pain and sitting in your unconscious, they're almost like little balls of energy that have their own gravitational fields. And so you don't realize them. So for example, say you went through some abuse when you were a kid and you've, put it way down deep and you've forgotten about it. And it's just sitting there in your energy field, your mental, emotional field, whatever you want to call it. You may not realize it, but it's vibrating in that pain and negativity. Someone could be standing right next to you. You could be having a conversation about the weather and something in them can feel it. And then they decide, I don't want to hire that person or date them or be their friend, or I don't even know why. And so when we find those pockets of pain in ourselves and really look at them and heal them, they transform into light. And then all of a sudden we feel lighter and we become enlightened. We lighten up, right? And then people are like, I love being around that person. They're so light. They're so joyful. They're so happy. I feel better every time I'm around them. And I remember when I was deep in my studies in Hawaii, my energy had really shifted. Obviously, living in Hawaii doesn't hurt either.
Nope.
Living in a hut by the beach for a while. And I remember I was giving a talk for some business at a company I was working for in tourism. And this woman walked up to me afterwards and she said, "Hey, what do you do?" And I said, "What do you mean? I do this." She goes, No, your energy is different. I could tell you do something else. And I was like, all right, well, I do healing work and meditation. That's kind of the core of what I do. And I teach on the side. She's like, that's what it is. She's like, I want that. I was like, whoa, back up, lady. I was like, you can get it yourself if you're willing to do the work. And she's like, no, I just want that. She was not willing to do the work. So when we shift and heal that trauma in ourselves, our energy lightens up. And wow, the reverberations of that are so incredible. You can meet someone at the supermarket, have a 5-minute conversation, leave a lasting impact. Just the other day, a woman that I met on a plane 5-6 years ago emailed me. She emails me like once a year and says, wow, that flight and that conversation was so great. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Not that I'm great. It's just that I was open to connecting.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me
well
great.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's all about human connection. It's all about having the conversations and human connection and how we align, whether it's verbally or just looking at someone or just being in someone's space. There's a magic in that, there's a real beautiful dance that happens there. And to align with people, and going back to what you just said about people just wanting to be, I just want some of that lady said, right? When you were on the beach, people just want to be feel better. They just want to feel better, whether they call it healing or whatnot. A lot of times they don't even want to know how they get from point A to point B. They just want to know B looks like a better place to be. But sometimes you get stuck in the middle because change is scary. I'm holding on to those, as I just spoke with Sarah Payton, who I love, those unconscious contracts that we have, that we tell ourselves that this is the way I am, and that's just that, and this is scary to get over here, So it's really releasing and letting go and being open to the possibilities, isn't it?
It is, and you have to face. Honestly, you have to face your demons. I love when I took a group to Bhutan last year. It feels like a century ago now that no one's traveling, and Nepal, and you see all these paintings of the Buddha surrounded by demons. You'll see that everywhere you go in Buddhist tradition. And they say that when he was meditating under the Bodhi tree, he was visited by Mara and these demons, and tried to seduce him in different ways, and he turned them into his servants. And then they sat beside him. And I love that. It's not that we get rid of them or deny them. So a demon might be like anger or fear or anxiety or a lack of self-worth or invalidation, right? And these demons come around again and again. And so when we really work with them and befriend them and understand them and transform them, then they serve us. So the way one of my demons has always served me, for example, is invalidation. It's a big one, imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough. So I've told the story once or twice, but it's happened to me a couple of times. But one of them, I was making my first ever video. I was like, all right, I'm going to put something on the internet. And I set up a green screen and my camera, and I was up on a ladder trying to fix the green screen. And I had this thought. It was on the left side of my head. I remember even where the image was, that I'll never be as good as my teacher. One of my teachers, I remember which teacher I was thinking about, had that thought, and I fell off the ladder, and it was like a step stool actually, and everything came crashing down. Something hit me hard right on that spot on my head. I had a huge lump, and I couldn't record for days, and I was on the verge of quitting this whole thing. Right now I would be I'd be a security guard at a museum, just yeah, come on, you kids, get the hell in here. No, I was on the verge of quitting. Nothing wrong with museum security guards. Everyone gets offended. I was on the verge of quitting, and I said, you know what? This is just a layer of invalidation, and I'm going to use it to my benefit. And here I am sharing that story, right? And so I kept going and kept learning and kept iterating. And the key, I think, is really learning and iterating every time, over and over. What did I do wrong last time? What did I miss? What got me stuck? So my demon was lack of self-worth, invalidation. It's probably something I'll deal with for the rest of my life in different degrees. I don't pretend that I've completely overcome it. And then when it's really wild. I've never shared this before. First time on Hilary's show. When I started getting popular as a teacher, oh my God, I'm so popular, by the way. Oh my God, it's crazy. My Instagram's blowing up. No, it's not. I just, I started getting more and more students, and my work started reaching people, and maybe a little skill, a lot of luck. And I remember some of my old peers from Hawaii just really poo-pooing me, just you're not supposed to become popular or known or a guru in the negative sense of the word. David's gone off the rails. He's bad now. He's bad because people take his classes in larger groups. And I remember this wave of shame and criticism coming at me. And I sat with that for a while, and I thought, it's the same as making money or anything else. It can turn you into a dark place and make you greedy and terrible and a miser, or you can take it and amplify the good in you and share and give and heal. And the same with becoming a popular teacher or quote unquote guru, whatever it is. I get to work those things out in myself, around my self-worth, around who I think I am. And if I can really do that in a healthy way, then I can share with the world in a healthy way. And I mean, if Eckhart had given into criticism like that, I wouldn't be here with you right now, because then he would have
Mm.
stayed small. No one ever would have found his work. And my life, I'd be a security guard at the museum again. Right.
Which wasn't a bad thing,
I'm going to
right?
get a letter from the Museum Security Guard Association of America. I don't know. I just thought of that Ben Stiller movie where he's a security guard.
Yeah.
I'm
Night
like,
at the museum.
that's it. That would be fun for me. They all get animated.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. And so those challenges, I decided, that's not a curse becoming a popular teacher in any way. I'm going to use it to my benefit and to the benefit of everyone else. And every day, every inch by inch, moment by moment, I'm going to work on that energy. Because I do get a lot of like messages. You're so wonderful. You changed my life. And I'm like, I back up. I'm like, I'm not. Like I'm fine. I'm not. I'm not the best thing since sliced bread. I appreciate that I'm helping you. That's beautiful. And always, checking in with who I know I am, not the negative things people might say about me or the positive ones. Kind of let them slide by, have appreciation, but not becoming them. And that's a practice.
That is a practice. And also the thought, first of all, thank you for sharing and revealing that on Holistically Speaking. That's what I'm holding space for, is for those stories to be told. So I appreciate that. And I think our listeners will as well. But the idea of the imposter syndrome is so big, especially in our line of work, in the healing arts and in the alternative medicines and whatnot. It's just because we tend to be the empath anyway, that we have this ability to think like, if I'm not doing this work, how is this how are other people going to witness me and see me? Because we are hard on ourselves, right? We have a hard time accepting compliments too. When people are coming to you saying, thank you for changing my life. The one thing I say a lot is that I'm not, we use this term healer so much. I'm not healing anyone. Nobody has the power to heal anyone else. We give people the tools and guide them in order to heal themselves, just like you and me, right?
Totally. Yeah. And if you do it the other way, you better be really careful, because, take someone like John of God, who was on an insane pedestal of healing thousands of people in Brazil. I don't know if you know who he is, but one of the world's most famous healers. And man, did he fall from that pedestal hard. Didn't give people the tools to do it themselves. He kind of did it. And yeah, that can warp you. You have to be super careful about that. I do want to say one other thing about this. We tend when we hit some kind of pain or energy, we tend to go in one of two directions. We inflate or we deflate. So someone gives us a compliment, we go, David is the best thing ever. How could any other teacher guide meditation as well as this man from New Jersey who played ice hockey in high school and has a medium-sized SUV? Right? Like, or we deflate, like, right. Oh, your work isn't that good. You're shit. I'm a total imposter. I'll never be that good. Everyone who criticized me in high school is right. So we inflate and we deflate, and that's natural. But some people, and check in with yourself, you may have a tendency to inflate as a way to protect yourself, or a tendency to deflate as a way to avoid and to hide. And because what could be worse than having a big ego? So in some sadistic way, I'll make sure I'm really small. But both are just a reaction to energy, and neither are really true for you. They're not your authentic energy. There is a way to be authentically confident and love yourself and not have to inflate or deflate. But I don't want to say it's just like a shift that happens in a moment. It's like a lifetime of work. It's like building muscle over time. It's just practice again and again and again, and hopefully being surrounded by good people that keep you honest.
Yeah. Great point. It is a practice. Everything we do in life is a practice. If we stop doing it, there's atrophy in our minds, in our bodies. We need to continue the work. And I would, I have clients that come to me, or just people in general, and I'm sure you do too, that they're like, it worked. but it's not working anymore. I'm like, well, are you doing it anymore? They're like, well, I haven't done it. I'm like, well, maybe that's why it's not working. You have to continue the practice. It's not some magic potion. Everything we do is in alignment with us continuing doing,
I remember
the be, do, have thing.
Yeah. This guy came to me once and he was like, hey man, so someone gave me your name, said you're a great healer. All right, let me just tell you my story. 2 years ago, I got a healing from some other guy. He totally changed my life and I've been high on it ever since. Can you do it to me again? And I was like, probably not, but man. So we did.
Well, that goes back to people wanting, they want just the cure. They want the healing. They don't want to feel the pain anymore. Just tell me how to get to be, right?
My magic wand is out of magic juice. Hold on. I got to go to Home Depot.
Need a new cord to plug it in and charge.
That's right. So I, did a session. It was really hard. It was a really tough session. I was like, I am sure I'm not living up to this guy's expectation. And this is some years ago. And I had to just say, hey, what are you looking for? Why are you here? What do you want? And no joke, he said, I want to be famous. And I was like, oh, shit.
Well, at least he's honest. I mean, he did ask the question.
Good start. I said, how do you, I'll change the story up a bit, just protect it, even though it was years ago. But he said, I want to make music that, changes people's lives. And I said, that's awesome. So what kind of music do you have? He goes, well, I haven't made any yet. I was like, oh, all right. So no content yet. All right. And I said, why do you want to be famous? He's like, yeah, to help people. I was like, really? Let's check in with that. To help people? And he goes, no, it's because I want to be seen and heard. I was like, oh, so it doesn't have to do with anybody else. It's really about you. And he was like, yeah. I was like, let's dig even deeper. Why do you want to be seen and heard? And he said, I guess I want to be loved. It's like, now we're at the core of it, and not shaming him to that, because that's not going to help either. Just let's find out. We all do this. Just, he was more honest. Most of us keep that in our heads. I would never think that like that man did, David. Never. So at least he came to me and was honest about it. And so, it was cool that we were able to get there.
Definitely. And what you've done, you went to the root, right? And isn't that part of the work we do? I mean, getting to the root of the issue, because perfect example, people come to you or me or anybody in our fields with a presenting issue. And the presenting issue is really never the issue, because like you said in that story, was it about the music? Was it about being seen, or was it really about being loved? And once you tap into that, and that gentleman hopefully was able to have that shift in his life, maybe he'll create that empowering music because he has a passion and he can fuse it with his purpose, but you have to unlock that door in order to see what that is. There was a great quote I recently read, which was and I have it up on my wall. My pain is the basis of my true power. Once we tap into that, once we tap into that, your true power might be what you were thinking of, but you had a different idea of how to get there or what it would mean, right? So
I think Glennon Doyle, I heard her say once, she's a writer, if you don't know her, and speaker. I do. Yeah, she said, find what breaks your heart, and that's your purpose. I like that. Yeah. That
I'll be honest, that opened the gate for me, already doing what I was doing, but doing it full in. Yeah. I needed to really know what that felt like, not that we all have to go through a breakup or which many of us do, but there's got to be something that kind of shakes us up a little bit, or we settle. We don't want the dirt to settle. Like in some religions, we constantly put rocks on top of the grave sites. So the earth is never settled, to show that we're always that person's always there, present, even if they're not there in flesh. It's kind of like that. You don't want the dirt to just settle so that it just becomes a flat surface and nothing can kind of come out of it. Oh, that was kind of profound, right?
Yeah.
I've never said it like that before.
I was just thinking, though, from the perspective of the ghost, they're probably like, can you just let me go?
Yeah.
Stop putting rocks on the grave. I want to move on and reincarnate. I want to be a dancer.
Oh, I love that. See, there's a whole nother theory to it too. But there are a lot. You living in Hawaii, that they do that with the stones, and a really beautiful thing. Speaking of Hawaii, though, Like, how long ago did you leave Hawaii for the mainland?
It's been 5 years.
Oh, so it's
Not too long.
that long. Yeah, I love Hawaii. It's beautiful. Have
It's
you been back?
I have not been back.
Oh,
I spent 7 years there. I have not been back. I will go back. I wouldn't
yeah,
mind teaching a retreat there. I feel
yeah.
like my cycle there ended 7 years. It was
Hmm.
beautiful. I don't know if I would ever live there again, but it's really cool. It was isolating for sure. The times I didn't have a partner, it was pretty isolating.
Yeah. There's an island fever that I've heard of that people have. My brother was there for 10 years. He was on
Oh
Maui.
wow.
Yeah, and it's kind of a second home for me and my family, and there's an idea to wanna go back there and kind of have a community within my family there, but my niece is already there in college. She's like, "I'm never coming home." Some people gravitate to it, and they were
Hey,
born there and everything.
no one's
Yeah.
saying no to a second home in Hawaii.
Right? I mean, another reason why if we create a life that we want and give, there's something else to create that you can open up schools there, you could do more retreats there. There's no to anything if it's something you want to manifest, right?
Yeah, and from like I've lived in a lot of places on this planet, and I've always felt like no one place is my home. I really do feel like a
Mm,
citizen of the world, and just the idea of the
love
conventions
that.
of countries, these borders that we made up in our heads based on our skin color or the tone of our voice, language.
Mhm,
Obviously, they're useful to some extent, but at a deep level, I've always felt like I don't care what country I'm in. I don't have allegiance to just one place,
mm,
and I'm kind of a Star Trekky kind of guy. I love thinking of the future in those terms where everything is connected. We're all on the same page in terms of equality and exploration of what's possible and growth, and even not having money anymore. So I hope one
mm,
day we get to a place like that where we go, hey, you know what? Why do we need different countries? Let's build technology so we can all have as much as we need and start
mhm.
exploring this infinite universe that we live on, just one tiny pebble of a rock in this massive ocean of stars. Why are we fighting each other? We live on a pebble in an ocean of stars. Let's get together and explore. Come on, guys. We've been out of the cave
Yeah.
for a while. Stop hitting each other
Pebble
over the heads with clubs, and let's explore.
Pebble and an ocean of stars. I feel like I've heard that before. Where's that from?
I thought I
If
just said
if
it. I
that
don't know.
if you just made that up, I love it. It's so poetic. It's beautiful. I feel like I've heard it, but beautiful, and it makes so much sense. There's a term we use in the communications industry, uh, and that I teach to my students. We're not living on our own. We might be present at the moment, living in Colorado or New York area or Hawaii or India, whatever, but we truly are a global village.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
love that term, because it just makes a connection.
If you watch the news, 100% of the news is nationalistic. 100% of the news. It's
Mm,
always whatever country you're in, it's always pro that country and how the other countries are enemies and are bad. And it's just a function of the news. But when you travel to other countries, you don't meet any enemies. I've
no.
never met an enemy in another country. I'm sure there's government spies and stuff, but you're
Mhm,
talking about like 0.0001% of the people. Everybody else, we're just human beings. We all want to meet each other and look each other in the eye and get along and love each other and grow. And the narrative makes it seem like there's just all of these entities at war, and it's just a
mhm.
very small group of people who are tripping.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
Speaking of traveling and not really having the opportunity to do so right now, being that we are kind of limited, we are, how has that been for you?
Yeah. So I just play video games all day and smoke weed.
Stop. No, really, Hilary, I do.
I don't. I can't do any substances. I have no tolerance.
Yeah.
I'm so soft.
You're lightwait.
Yeah, I'm such a
And I'm a,
lightweight.
I'm a lightweight. I have like
Yeah.
rum candy or a glass of wine, and I'm like, woo!
Yeah, I'm the
Yeah,
same.
but
So,
how are you dealing with that?
I'm a bit of a workaholic. I
Mm,
I have I spent a lot of time creating content and, you know, working with my team and building and creating, growing. So honestly, my life hasn't changed that much other than not going on retreats to other countries, which I was doing a fair amount of. But you know what? I kind of needed the rest. So I'm okay with it. It's a good, and I've been writing a book. So it's been perfect in certain ways of just getting me to stay and hunker down and get some stuff done. Yeah, and obviously it sucks that we're going through a pandemic like this and people are hurting and dying. There's always a silver lining, which one of them for me is, can we have compassion for each other and care for each other, or are we going to just be like, hey, you're sick, stay the hell away from me, and start fighting about masks? It reminds me of, I mentioned this, I taught a class recently called Healing Politics on an app I teach on. And oh no, I mentioned this in a different class. I'm sorry, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, the Chief Justice in the, not Chief Justice, Supreme Court Justice in the United States. And I remember it was a Friday afternoon, evening when the news came out. And immediately within an hour, the politicians were fighting over who was going to replace her. I remember sitting back going like, hey, you jerks, give it a minute. The woman was like 80 something years old. She gave her whole life to the court. Why don't you spend 24 hours of the weekend honoring who she is and what she's given, whether you agree with her or not, and then have that discussion. There's no semblance of compassion. It's just knives out, and everybody loses. Everybody loses with that kind of energy. And the same goes with people fighting about the pandemic and the numbers and the masks. It's like, forget about the content that you're fighting about. Just step back and go, what is the energy that I'm in when I'm discussing it? And what is the energy that I'm bringing to the world and trying to create? I think that's far more important than the content, because the content will change. Next year, it'll be something else. It goes from terrorism to white supremacy to school shootings to pandemic to the economy to inequality to climate change. There are thousands of issues. You will always find somewhere to hang your negativity hat on. You will always find something to run your anger and rage through, even if you live for 1,000 years. And you have to and if you lived 1,000 years ago, the same thing was going on in different ways. We had pandemics, right? We had black plagues. We had we were annihilating people based on their religion. And so if you wait for the world to be perfect, you will wait forever. In my opinion, you have to step back and shift your energy right now and decide how you want to live in the world. And if you wake up and go to bed in outrage, you're going to live a pretty miserable life. And I don't think it's going to help anything.
Oof, I felt that. I really did. Very profound, David.
Don't be miserable, people.
Right. That right. There's the hashtag right there. That makes so much sense. I mean, when you mention Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I'm thinking about how people tend to fight over wills like the minute someone passes.
Yeah.
It's like, where are you witnessing the life of someone, or you instantly go into the mode of self? And you're right. We've been through so much on this planet before we were even on this planet, or humans were on this planet. It's constantly evolving. We need these things to happen. And I'm certainly not saying we needed over 200,000 people to die at all. But all of this is creating, hopefully, more mindfulness and compassion and a way for people to see things. And if there's some way we can go inward during this time and find value in who we want to be and who we can become to be on this planet in a better way, then that's the true the gift and challenge right there.
Yeah, absolutely. My grandparents survived the Holocaust, and a lot of my relatives were killed by the Nazis or killed in war. One of my grandfathers fought in World War II and was wounded. What we're going through very much pales in comparison to the annihilation of an entire group of people. So I try to always keep that in mind. And, the more comfortable our lives get, the more we complain. Like, The plane was delayed by 20 minutes. They made me wear a mask when I went to the supermarket. Whatever it is, it just, we get so comfortable. We start complaining, like, back up. My grandparents almost starved to death. People were trying to murder them.
Yeah.
And they made it out. And most of humanity, we were coming out of caves and just trying to survive. We are doing better than we have ever done on a general level. And we should all be very, very grateful. And now I believe it's time to turn our attention on saving the planet and the environment. Otherwise, we're going to destroy ourselves. And so I think hopefully think that we're moving from a stage of materialism to more of I don't know what I would call it, but just like people will start spending money, like we talked about earlier, more on healing, more on growth, more on experiences. Like me being in the retreat industry, people are like, I don't want to just go sit on a beach, for a week at an all-inclusive resort and drink. I want to go meet like-minded people in my genre of my interest and grow and explore cultures. And now people are spending their time, energy, and money like that. And I think we're turning that into being conscious of the planet. There's a lot of ecotourism and how can I give back? Like my groups, like we will go help an orphanage or we'll go work with animals. I'll try to make every retreat we do something. And so I think a consciousness is turning in that direction. All right, how much more stuff do I need? Let me focus more on shifting and growing here.
Yeah, we really need to do that because if we come back to saying, gosh, my Wi-Fi is slow, I can't believe this. It's like, there are bigger upsets in the world, I mean, and that kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, just to bring it back about, and I was on AOL and I remember when I first had internet and it was like the dial up and you're like, whoa, check me out. I'm connecting to the world. And now that speed is like snail's pace. So the fact that we're constantly evolving, but it's not just evolving technology wise or, science wise, it's evolving within. What are we doing to become evolution, and moving?
Yeah, and I don't think the future is as set as the media kind of makes it out to be. I feel like it kind of makes us all believe that the world is going in this inevitable direction. Like, yeah, governments will all just spy on us. And, there's just like this belief that just like there's this inevitable direction. The rich will get richer and the poor get poorer. And the planet will just keep being destroyed. Like, hold up. We're the ones doing all of it. We can change direction any day that we want to. And it doesn't take 100% of people. There's usually like this threshold that needs to be broken, right? Like when a trend happens and something becomes cool that wasn't cool, like meditating became cool in the last decade. It wasn't cool before that, Hilary. I was not a cool meditator. Now I'm a cool meditator. And in the future, maybe it won't be cool again, but there was a threshold of consciousness that shifted on the planet around it. And that can happen in a lot of different ways. It just takes a certain number of people to really shift their energy. And so I think we can do that when it comes to the planet, with the environment, with politics. Like my neighbor today, hey, I'm sending money to Belarus to overthrow a dictator. I might even fly there and help. And so we could do it. I'm not as pessimistic as a lot of other people.
I'm with you. I don't want to buy into the negativity because it just breeds more negativity. I think that's what we mean about aligning with like-minded people. Clearly, we're going to have people around us that might not, aren't going to think the same. We're all individuals, right? But we can gravitate, and we will, if we're just in the be state that be do have, right? We're going to align with those that are like-minded, just in witnessing and being, right? So I love that. Yeah.
And let's all just sit under 500-year-old trees and meditate.
Yes. I love that idea. Right. Definitely. So what's next for David? You were talking about the book, but what's going on?
Working on a book, and I have meditation school, which is where I teach live a couple times a month. It's kind of my main focus these days. And when students ask me where they can find me, say, come to meditation school, sit and really work some energy. So I like a place where I have no app that could tell me what to do, or boss or university or company, and I could say whatever I want and be my silly self. and then really go deep. So some classes will be very focused on the fundamentals of meditation, and sometimes I'll do some really wild stuff on spirituality and exploring the stars and everything in between. I like fulfilling the very practical, materialistic part of me and the very spiritual, woo-woo part of me. I don't think those two have to be in conflict. I love this quote. Jennifer Musk, Elon Musk's ex-wife, she said, take two ideas and get them to have idea sex and birth an idea baby. And that's how you create something really cool. And there used to be conflict in me, like, do I do the mindfulness corporate approach, or do I do the crazy David Hawaii intuitive healing arts approach? What is my business? I can only choose one, And I realized, no, it's all part of me. I like it all. I like neuroscience and I like the spiritual healing woo stuff, and it's all part of me. I don't think they're in conflict at all. In fact, they probably complement each other well. And so integrating them and creating a meditation idea baby that is Meditation School and the Meditation School podcast.
I love that you bring that up, because a lot of times people will say to me, but Hilary, you're a journalist and now you're doing this. I'm like, no. I'm incorporating my years of experience listening to people and holding space for people as a journalist and talking to people as a storyteller and hearing their stories led me to wanting to do more of the work because of the stories I was hearing, and now holding space for people and neuroscience. I'm a total nerd with that too, which is why I do the havening. But I get it. It's like, it's all part of our toolbox that we're creating so that we can open up and grab whatever the tool is we need at the time when we need that thing tweaked or fixed or just opened up, right?
And I think at the end of the day, we're all explorers, we're healers, we're artists, we're lovers, we're all of the above. And when all of our jobs get automated away, what are we going to do? We're going to want to just explore our interests and who we are in the universe. Why not just start now? You don't want to spend 100% of your time just on the bottom line, just on survival. Yeah. That's a part of the hierarchy, obviously, of needs, but you got to make sure you open up some of those higher dimensions of yourself, and they will feed the lower dimensions. They're not in conflict in any way. And I think when we really embrace all of ourselves as human beings, that's when we're going to live fulfilled, happy lives. And hopefully that's partially what I'm doing with teaching people meditation and to open up. And obviously you are with this podcast. And if you're listening to this, hopefully you got something out of that.
Yeah. I want to mention too, when you were mentioning meditation school, for those who are listening, David has been very gracious, and he is going to have a lovely offering that I'm going to share on the podcast page. So stay connected so that you can learn about that and learn more about David and connect with him as well. So normally what I do as I close out these podcasts is I ask my guests if there's something they would like to leave with listeners, but I feel like this entire podcast episode, you have been leaving something for listeners. I will hold space for you to share that too. But first, I would love to do this rapid fire that I do with my guests, if you're cool with that. And you know what that is, right? Like I'm throwing out a word, David's going to tell me the first thing that comes to mind, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. My favorite part. Shame.
Growth.
Money.
Opportunity.
Hawaii.
Love.
Meditation.
Discovery.
Healing.
Wholeness.
Trauma.
Authenticity.
Connection.
Oneness.
Yeah, dude. Bring it. Love it. Love it.
That was fun.
So I like doing that. It kind of just lets you think for a second, but not think, like just be.
Oh, I was just going to say it'd be a great way to do some speed dating. Like I say a word, then you say a word back. And if you're like Hawaii and they're like Nazis, you're like, okay, this isn't going to work. So what I just have to admit, sometimes I take stand-up comedy classes. It's one of my passions. So if I get a little silly, it's just that strain in me of comedy that I like.
Please be silly. I mean, that's the whole idea. Like my name, Hilary, means cheerful and merry. I mean, the whole idea of this podcast. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we have to find the humor in the healing. And that's the whole idea of holistically speaking. It's transforming traumas to triumphs through health, healing, and humor. So if we don't see that which we've been through, that which we've been through, and create the space for, I gotta laugh at some of this stuff, because if we are serious all the time, how are we able to kind of let go and let our guard down? So I get it. I love that you're taking comedy
awesome.
and classes, because it loosens you up, right?
Yeah.
There's the whole idea of just being present and like whatever happens. Improv is great.
You'll never let go of pain if you hold it in a ball of seriousness, cover it with a sheet of seriousness. Seriousness is what keeps things where they are. You have to lighten up and be able to make fun of yourself a bit and just loosen up. That's people who can't, they usually get stuck in the mud with what they're working on.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to whenever you're working out or exercising or before you go for your run in the mountains, you're going to loosen your body up, right? You're going to like relax and get the muscles relaxed so that you're not tight and you get a cramp. Same thing with your mind, right? If we're so tight.
Yeah, I've recently been starting my meditation classes by reading some jokes out of a Jerry Seinfeld book he just released. Gosh,
you are a different kind of meditator. I love it. That's what makes you, David. That's what I love. Anyway, in closing, I do want to hold space for you to share. Is there anything else that you would like to share with listeners before we say adios?
That's a great question. David, what have you learned in 20 years of meditating?
Yes, in one sentence.
Yeah. I want to say something that hopefully is a little bit more unique and maybe on the level of what we were just talking about with humor. In my experience of like when you really dive deep into what life is about and you touch some deeper dimension of reality and you go, wow, I'm an ant on a tiny pebble in the ocean of stars. There is almost like a cosmic joke to the whole thing, but that has a sense of compassion to it. It's like, isn't it a little funny that you went through all this pain and now you're coming home to yourself and healing and knowing who you are? Is something beautiful and funny and sad and deep and special about it that you can't help but like shed a tear of gratitude at in just incredible awe and infinity of life that is, no matter how many pages you turn in the book, it will just show you more and more and more like a kaleidoscope. And as long as you can stay in that energy and be humble, recognizing life is just going to keep unfolding. I don't have to know it all or control it all. I just actually should let the ride happen. I think you're going to have a much easier time, feel less anxiety, and enjoy this time. Because if you look back at your life, you probably spent most of your life thinking about the future. And here we are. There's less and less time. So right now would be the time to stop thinking about the future and start living. It doesn't matter if your finances or your relationships aren't perfect. Just start living. And in that energy, it will bring more of what you actually want. So it's a little bit of a paradox is when you let go of that, it starts to come to you.
Beautiful. I have to remind myself of that once in a while too. Do you find that you have to remind yourself of what you dish out?
Every single dang day.
I hear that.
Even when I'm working the night shift at the museum, I'm like, David, just embrace it.
Embrace embrace everything around you. I love that. That's so great. I mean, we are constantly our own gurus in a lot of ways as well. We have to be. Have to be. So that's a wonderful way to end this. David, thank you so much for your time and the laughter and just sharing who you are. I really couldn't have enjoyed this anymore. So
thanks,
thank you.
Hilary. Such a pleasure.
You can learn more about David and Meditation School by clicking the very special link that he's offering Holistically Speaking listeners. You can find that on my podcast page. And if you're ready to transform your traumas into triumphs, learn more about havening techniques, and work with me personally, drop me a line on my website at hilaryrusso.com and set up a free discovery call. I'd love to support you on your healing journey. You can also connect with me on all social media at Hilary Russo. Holistically Speaking is produced by Alan Seals with music by Litbone Redding. Connection is everything, my friend, and that's why I'm here, because of you. So thanks for listening. And until next time, be kind to your mind and don't forget to laugh.